Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first in 4 webinar series on SLEIS, the State and Local Emission Inventory System. I'm Carrie Schroeder, the Emissions Inventory Manager, and you'll hear a presentation from me today and my staff, Grant Loney. This presentation is about registering for a SLEIS account and managing that account. On today's agenda, I will go over what is an emissions inventory, who's required to report one, what's new for this upcoming reporting season, some important dates you need to keep track of, things you can be doing before the reporting season begins, how to register and manage your account in SLEIS. Grant will go over that last part. And I do want to let everybody know that we have muted you. Please do not unmute yourself. We are recording this webinar and all the subsequent webinars, and we'll put them on our website. If you have any questions, please use the chat feature in the GoToMeeting box, and we will look at those and answer those throughout the presentation. So first, what is an emissions inventory? It's a report of actual emissions of regulated pollutants during the previous year. It basically lets us know what equipment and processes you have at your facility and how long that equipment ran and what you calculate the emissions to be. Who's required to report an inventory for 2019? Our rules state the owner or operator of any facility that is a source of regulated air pollutants must submit an inventory. Our rules also allow the Air Quality Division Director to collect special inventories. We don't have any of those right now. What it really boils down to is that facilities with individual permits, or if you're registered under a general permit, then you have to submit an inventory every year. If you have registered under a permit by rule, then you're on a different schedule that matches up with EPA's triennial national emissions inventory. So for those, and when you're thinking about 2019 reporting, only the ones that registered under a PBR in 2019 need to report, because the EPA's schedule makes it to where all the PBR facilities will need to report in 2020. The only exception in our rules of facilities that don't need to report an inventory are permit exempt and de minimis as defined in our rules. I imagine there are a few, if any, on this call that have those facilities, because you're here to learn how to report your inventory. What's new for this upcoming reporting season? Hopefully you've heard that Redbud is no longer available. That was our previous online reporting system, and we have disabled that. We have purchased SLEIS, the State and Local Emission Inventory System. Over a dozen state and local agencies throughout the nation use it. It's a proven system. We have migrated your 2013 through 2018 inventories into SLEIS, so you can check those out. During that migration, we had to make some adjustments to the data to adapt to SLEIS's structure. So you might notice when you go into report for 2019, you might have to make some changes. Maybe we didn't make a correct selection, or it just won't pass the validation until you fill something out. One field that we did add to SLEIS that you didn't have in Redbud is the oil and gas facility category field. And we created this to better capture and accurately portray the oil and gas sector in Oklahoma. We need to make sure that we're not double counting emissions anywhere or missing anything. This has to do with us submitting data to EPA for the National Emissions Inventory. So you will notice that if you don't have an oil and gas NAICS or SIC code, then we've likely filled that out as not applicable for you. And you'll notice if you're a wellhead facility and you've reported an API number to us in the past, we have identified those and set those to wellhead facilities. It's mainly the midstream facilities that are more difficult for us to determine where you're at in the midstream sector. So you will need to select your category. That will be on the General Facility Information page in SLEIS under the Additional Info tab, and it is a required field. Hopefully you've noticed that we launched a new website this past July for emissions inventory pages. We added a new annual operating fee page, and that goes over how we bill the different emissions, the pollutants, and the fact that we bill 2 years in arrears, and it has the latest Title V rate that we'll be billing at next. We also updated our oil and gas sector emissions page. We really expanded on that to provide researchers and the public and anybody that wants to know about how we are quantifying oil and gas sector emissions in Oklahoma. It lays out the history of how we've, over time, become better at quantifying those emissions for the National Emissions Inventory. Important dates. I guess, do we have any questions at this point? I wanted to make sure, especially since I'm going over what's new for the upcoming reporting season, I wanted to stop and check with my staff if we had any questions. No questions at this time, so I'll continue on. The important dates, hopefully you registered for all of the webinars, not just today's. The next webinar is December 16th, and that will go over the user interface of SLEIS, basically how you can go in and add records and update information, fill out your inventory. And then on December 18th, we'll go over the template use. You can basically download a template, fill out your information, and upload it. That's the bulk operations. If you have a lot of facilities or a lot of emission units to account for, then you're probably pretty interested in that webinar. And then in January, on January 23rd, we'll have our more so traditional workshop, but it will be in a webinar format where we'll go over some guidance stuff, including how to do emission calculations and quality control that we've identified, the top 10 quality control mistakes that we've identified when we migrated your data into SLEIS. If you haven't registered for all of them, you can register at this website here. On the emissions inventory homepage, you can navigate to our workshop page. The reporting season is January 1st through April 1st. You'll notice that your 2019 reports are not generated yet in SLEIS if you've already gotten in there. We will be generating those later this month. We mail out your operating fee invoice July 1st, and that is due at the end of July. You'll notice that is we're feeing on your 2018 emissions. So we bill 2 years in arrears. That just gives us ample time to do quality control on your 2019 inventory that you will have submitted prior to that. Things you can do before January comes: you can gather your records, you can get into SLEIS and make sure that all of the facilities you have in there are what you actually own. So if you sold or purchased facilities this past year, you need to make sure you submit Form 100-883, our Administrative Change Notification Form. We will not be transferring or moving facilities in SLEIS until you send that in, and that form has a spot for the previous owner and the new owner to sign. If you've had any change in personnel, you can submit Form 100-882 if it's a change in responsible official. And that form, we've had a Form 100-882 for a long time, but you will notice on our website that form has been modified to account for the SLEIS component. And then we developed a new form, 100-733, for all other SLEIS users. So that would include your main facility contact, anybody else you want to be able to get into SLEIS and fill out your inventory. That could be for consultants. The RO will need to sign off on that. I don't want to get into too much detail on this because Grant will be going over these in detail in a few minutes. But I will say that we did load SLEIS already with our existing records of responsible officials and main facility contact for each facility. So you may already have an account in SLEIS. Other records you can be gathering, operational data such as annual throughput for equipment and hours of operation. If you have new equipment that you added on site this year, then you'll want to gather the specifications for that, such as the design capacity, the release point parameters like the gas exit flow rate and gas exit velocity, the temperature, so that you'll be ready to enter that into SLEIS. You can review the facility application guide on the SLEIS homepage, and Grant will show you in a minute where that's at. And the file import specifications, that gives you the codes on how you can use the template download, upload feature, what you can fill out in there. And of course, in preparation for the reporting season, you can attend our other webinars. So, are there any questions at this point before Grant starts? I don't see any. Again, feel free to type into the chat box on the GoToMeeting feature, and when we get little breaks or at the end, we can answer all of those questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Thank you, everyone, for attending today. We're glad you could make it and carve out some time for us. So I'm going to go through several things with you. The first of which, I'm going to show you just a little bit about DEQ's new website. So we're showing the home page here. Pretty easy to find. Our web address is pretty simple, deq.ok.gov. If you forget that website, it's pretty simple to find with Google. I usually just Google OK DEQ. Oops, I think I had a typo, but fortunately, Google's smart enough to capture that with this. First hit that comes up, here's our website again. So I wanted to start here because I wanted to show you how to get to those two forms, the form 100-882 and 100-733. So we see across the top here, we got that banner. As I scroll across there, you can see the drop-down list. So to find those forms, we're going to go to divisions, and then from divisions, underneath the air quality division, we're going to go to this forms and public participation. Click on that. From there, we see air forms. I'm going to click that. And then the two we're looking for, conveniently enough, are right up top for us, the form 100-733 and the 100-882. So let's look at those forms and talk about some of the roles available in SLEIS. So I'm pulling up form 100-882. Again, we have done some revisions to this form recently, so it looks different than what you may be accustomed to seeing. This is the first page containing the instructions, and it also contains the descriptions of the roles. I want to spend a little bit of time discussing these roles and what they mean. So just going right down the list, viewer. A person with a role of viewer can, as the name suggests, view the contents of an emissions inventory report. They cannot make any edits to anything within the report. They are unable to start a report. They're unable to add equipment or processes. They cannot input throughput data, nor hours, nor emissions. Contrast that with the editor role. The editor role can view everything just like the viewer can, and they can also start a report. They can add equipment to a report. They can input throughput data, other operational data, emissions data, all the things that would need to go into the report prior to submission. The viewer role and the editor role are mutually exclusive. Every SLEIS account will be given one or the other of those two roles. You will either be given the viewer role to just view and not make edits, or the editor role to be able to change data. The next role is the administrator role. This role is the one who is basically in charge of managing the people, specifically the people's accounts at your facility or company. The administrator can change the roles that the user already has, and the administrator can remove a person's association from their facility or company. Notably, the administrator cannot add a new person to their facility or company, and to do that, that's what the Form 100-733 is for. Agency personnel must add the user to the company or facility, and then the administrator can make any changes that they need to make, including changing their roles and dissociating them from the company or facility. Finally, the last role is a submitter. A submitter is a responsible official as defined in our rules. The definition for responsible official is also duplicated on the second page of these instructions. So we'll see that here in just a moment. As Carrie mentioned, any ROs that we already had on file have been previously loaded into SLEIS, and so you will not need to submit Form 100-882. All you will need to do would be to set up a password for yourself, which I'll talk more about later on. So, of course, the most important function of the submitter is to submit the emissions inventory. One big difference between SLEIS and Redbud is that in Redbud, you could submit as many times as you wanted to, and only the last submission at the end of the reporting season would become the copy of record. SLEIS does not work that way. In SLEIS, you only get to make one submission, and that one submission becomes the copy of record. If you need to make any adjustments to anything in the emissions inventory after submitting it, you will have to request from us the ability to do an amendment. The whole amendment process is beyond the scope of today's webinar, but I just want to make the point that you only make one submission without having to request an amendment. Concerning these roles, in big bolded letters here, and I want to hit it again, consultants and contractors will not be assigned administrators, nor will they be assigned as submitters. Of course, submitters are only responsible officials who must meet that definition. Of course, consultants and contractors do not meet the definition of responsible official. And since the administrator is the person involved with managing the accounts of the employees or other contractors, we want to make sure that that person is an actual employee of the company. So if you're wondering what types of people might fit into any of these roles, a viewer can be anyone, really anyone that you think should have access to see your emissions inventory but doesn't necessarily need to be editing the data. They can have the viewer role. Your editor, these might be people like your environmental health and safety staff, other EHS folks, or consultants and contractors, of course, will most likely be the editor. You may hire seasonal staff to help you input data. These types of folks would be editors. The administrator, probably going to be somebody a little bit higher up than an editor, maybe an EHS manager instead of just an EHS staff. And then again, the submitter is the responsible official. That one, there is no leeway with. One of the things that we're pretty excited about in SLEIS is the ability to set roles at the company level or at the facility level. So what that means is if you are assigned a role at the company level, you will have that same role at every facility associated with that company. So if, for example, you are a company level editor, you would be able to edit the contents of every emissions inventory report of every facility associated with that company. Conversely, a facility level role, the permissions granted by that role are only granted at the facility or facilities at which the role is assigned. You do have the ability under this system to have different roles at the company and at the facility, or different roles at different facilities. And we'll show a little bit of that later on. So now I want to actually look at the rest of these forms and not just the instruction page for it. So page 1 is the instructions with the definitions of those roles. Page 2, definition of responsible official. And then The part of the form that we actually need completed and returned to us is page 3. I want to show you a couple of different ways to navigate to this form. I've got it pulled up just so we can see it, but there are a couple of different places you can find it. You can find it on our website. You can find it here again. We've done this once already, but just in case you've forgotten or are tuning in late, we went to Divisions, Air Forms, and then right here under that one, top 2 there. Again, we've seen that already, but just in case you signed in late, there it is. You can also find those forms in SLEIS. I will show you where that is once we get to SLEIS. So section 1 here is pretty straightforward. You're just going to give the contact information for this responsible official. I think it's pretty clear to most people, but it's worth mentioning that the RO address should be your business address. We don't want your home address here. This is what to send, business-related correspondence to, which is probably not to your home for most people. So the rest of that on there is pretty self-explanatory. Now let's look at the roles available here. Same 4 roles that we just talked about a little bit ago. By default, we are setting all submitters, which is to say all people who submit Form 100-882 as a submitter role. We are assigning them the administrator role and the viewer role. If this person would like, they can select this checkbox to be given the editor role instead of the viewer role. Again, viewer role and editor role are mutually exclusive, so you only have one or the other. Going down to the bottom of section 3 of this form, we have a place for you to list company name or names. So one thing to note here is that if you will be a responsible official for multiple companies, there is no need to submit multiple copies of this form. You may simply write each company name for which you are a responsible official for in this box here. This checkbox right here says assign RO to all facilities at this company. This indicates if you check this box that you want to have your role assigned at the company level. Again, the role assigned at the company level will be granted to every facility at that company. So you do not need to list any facilities in that box below if you check this box. Now, if you do not want that role at the company, but you only want that role at one or more facilities, do not check this box and instead type or write your facility names into this facilities box. Do note that we need the ROs to sign, title, and date this form. We're going to look a little bit now at Form 100-773 for everyone who's not a responsible official. We've got the same first page with our instructions. We've got the same second page with the responsible official definition. And then we've got a little bit difference within the form itself. The name is pretty clear. We'll spend a bit of time talking about these 2 check boxes here. As mentioned previously, consultants and contractors will not be given the submitter role nor the administrator role. So as a way of helping us to make sure that we don't assign any inappropriate roles for people, we would ask that a consultant or contractor checks this box so that we can be double sure that we get the correct roles for the correct people. This other box, check here for the primary facility contact. This is very, very similar to the main facility contact that we have had for a long time. Essentially, check this box if you want us to contact you first about any questions we have regarding the emissions inventory, whether that is for data validation or QC, or if we have questions about your operating fee invoice or something like this, that is when you should check this box. Note that there should only be one person for every facility who checks this box. There can only be one primary contact in place, but there's only one person we're going to call first. Next, we've got our roles. Notice that there is no submitter role on this form, because if you should be a submitter, you should not be filling out Form 100-733. You should be filling out Form 100-882. That is the responsible official and submitter form. Otherwise, the roles are the same as we've seen previously with the administrator as an optional role, and then you will be given one of the two of either editor or viewer. Same thing with the responsible official, where we have space for you to list one or more companies. The same checkbox, again, indicating when the box is checked that you would like this role assigned at the company level and therefore granted to all facilities at that company. And same thing again, if you leave it blank, if you do not check that box, but instead type in names of facilities there, we will give you those roles at only the facility level. It is not required, but it is welcomed for you to submit a cover letter with these forms. This is especially true if you have a complex situation that you would like to explain with your letter. A few other reasons why you might submit a cover letter. If, for example, you are submitting multiple 4, 5, 6 Form 100-773s for multiple people, and you don't want the RO to sign each and every one of those forms, if you put each of those people's names on a cover letter and have the RO sign the cover letter, that is acceptable. Another reason might be to include a cover letter would be to give us additional clarity on whether you, this is speaking of if we receive a 100-882, greater clarity on whether you will be replacing the existing RO or being assigned as an additional RO. Or if you want to be really explicit about which roles you want assigned at the company and which roles you want assigned at various facilities, or any other complex situation you can imagine. If you just want to be absolutely sure that we completely understand what you're going for, a cover letter is welcomed. Do note again that you do require the signature of the responsible official for this Form 100-733. So both forms will require the signature of the responsible official. With that, I am ready to go over into SLEIS. Do we have any questions that we want to answer first?
All right, first question we have, how do we know if we as an RO or facility contact had an account automatically created, and how do we get access? Grant is going to go over that when he's in SLEIS, so you'll see that demoed here in a minute. Next question, sounds like there's only one submittal using the new system. Before this submittal is finalized, does the validation or verification complete first so errors can be corrected before entering the amendment process? SLEIS does have built-in validation checks, and yes, it will run all of those before you can submit. It won't let you submit until you pass all of that. But we will, the emissions inventory section will also do quality control during the summer, checking for things that SLEIS doesn't check for or can't check for. So we'll still have that avenue where we may contact you for an amendment. Next question, can the editor submit when SLEIS is complete? No, only the submitter role, only the responsible official has the ability to submit a report. The editor can get it ready for the RO to submit, but they don't have the ability to submit. Next question, if I am assigned as an authorized agent by a company, can I be a responsible official? I assume this person is meaning duly authorized representative as laid out in the RO definition. We do accept those if the RO signs off saying, I want to duly authorize, I'm person A and I want to duly authorize person B to sign on my behalf. We have accepted those and assign them as such. So just check out page 2 of the form where it pulls from our rules how you can fall under that category. Next question, cover letter, will an email suffice? I guess it depends on what you're trying to lay out. If you have the forms filled out and they're signed off on and you're emailing us a copy of those, you've scanned them and you're emailing us, and in the email you're just wanting to clarify what you've filled out, that would be fine. But if you're trying to have 5 forms attached and only one of them is signed off by the RO, that would not suffice. So I guess it depends on what you're doing in the email, what you're asking for in the email. Next question, is an electronic signature acceptable? On the forms, we are not accepting electronic signatures at this time. It needs to be a regular ink to paper signature. You can mail them, you can scan and email them to us, but we don't do the electronic signatures. Next question, can you have more than one RO? That is a great question. Yes, you can. SLEIS has the ability to have as many responsible officials as you need. They can be over the entire company of facilities, or you can have one RO over 5 facilities, another RO over the other 5 facilities at a company. Next question. Well, I'm glad that you guys are asking all these great questions. Will we be able to print out a draft copy for review before signature by the RO? On the emission inventory, yes, you will be able to print out a report for review. It will not look like the turnaround document that we've had in the past or the Redbud document. It will look different, but there is a report for you to review first. Last question, are the administrator and submitter already set up in SLEIS according to previous emission reports, or do we need to submit a new form prior to using SLEIS? The RO we have on file, just to say again, is what we loaded SLEIS with, unless we've received some change since the last time, and then that change will have been implemented. And the main facility contact we had on file was also loaded into SLEIS with an account. And Grant will go over how you can get in and see if you have an account or not next. So I don't see any more questions at this time. We are going to continue with Grant.
Okay, now we're finally going to go into SLEIS and navigate around there and see what it looks like. So I'm going to start us at our homepage, the Oklahoma DEQ homepage. So again, this is deq.ok.gov. And then to find SLEIS, we're going to go to divisions from this little banner up top. Over on the left-hand side, we've got the air quality division. We're going to find emissions inventory and click it. And then once it loads the next page here, we see this big, bright white or big, bright yellow banner. And in there it says SLEIS. We'll just click on that. And there we go. We are to the SLEIS homepage. Now, much like the DEQ homepage, I want to show you, in case you've forgotten that it's pretty easy to just find it. Okay, DEQ, oops, SLEIS, and it should come up pretty early. It's the second hit here. So going through our website is the preferred way, but if you forget how to do that, Google OK DEQ SLEIS, and you'll probably find it. Okay, so let's look at a few things here. I told you I was going to show you where to find the Form 100-882 and 100-773 in SLEIS. Well, they are right here. Sorry, that's the Form 733. Yeah, so they're right here. The forms with their links right in the SLEIS user registration header. There's several other documents here that will be helpful for you. Carrie mentioned earlier the SLEIS Facility Application Guide. This is a user guide put together by Windsor Solutions, the company who created SLEIS. It's been looked over and edited by missions inventory staff here in Oklahoma to be more user-friendly and applicable to our users. There's a few other things in here. These SLEIS file import specification documents will be important for one of the future webinars where we go through that stuff, and then just some FAQs and other resources for you while putting together your inventory. So let's go ahead and get logged in here and look around in SLEIS. So log in. We have set up an account for us to use in part to show you today, and so let me get logged in with that one. So the first thing you'll notice when you get logged in is the landing page that you come to. This is the My Companies page. When you log in, you will always come to the My Companies page unless you do not have any company level roles. If you are only assigned facility level roles and no company level roles, instead of coming to the My Companies page, you'll come to the My Facilities page. Before we dig into these companies, I want to show you your user profile. So we can get to it by clicking right here under My Profile. The first thing we see right here is your email address, and you notice that that is locked. You cannot change that email address. Your SLEIS account is tied to your email address much more closely than it's tied to any other piece of information. So you do have the ability to edit just about everything else: your name, your title, other contact information, including phone number and other contact information. But that email address that is hooked to your account is unchangeable by you. Now, one thing that might be confusing is worth pointing out here is that if you come down to this contact information part, there is an option for you to put in an email address here. However, this is not the email address tied to your account. This will not update your email address for your account if you update the email address in this field. If your email address changes, you need to contact us very soon so that we can update SLEIS and allow you to retain your access. This is any change whatsoever, even a tiny change like a period between your name and your first and last name. Any change of email address, you need to let us know so that we can get your access as it should be. Notice one thing here, you see that these have little red bars. That means that's a required field. You know, these ones up here, not required fields, so you can leave that zip code blank because there's no red bar next to that field. The page itself will not save if you don't have the red bars filled out for in every field. So let's get out of here and let's start looking at some of these companies. So I have set up these accounts with different roles at different companies. So let's look at a couple. This first one I want to look at is this test code DEQ right here at the bottom. This one's been given really high level permissions. It's been given administrator, editor, and submitter roles at the company level. So this means, again, they will have those 3 roles at every facility associated with that company. So actually, let me go back up so I can do that a little bit slower. You can see that again. You got 2 buttons here. We're only concerned with one button today, and that's this first one here that says open. We're going to open this, and then now we can see all of the facilities associated with this company that we have access to based upon our assigned roles. So there's several facilities in here. If we wanted to get more details about those facilities, we can click these open buttons, but that's not really what we're here for today. One thing I wanted to show you, we've talked a couple times about what the administrator does, but I want to show you how that works. So if I click over here on View Company Users, I can see everyone who's got a company level role assigned to this company right now. So we've got our account that we're working with here, with our editor, submitter, and administrator, and then I've got another test account set up over here just to show you guys how this works. So as the administrator, I can click on this edit button and I can edit anything except this email address about this user. Most importantly, the roles at the bottom. See, this account right now only has the viewer role, but since I'm the administrator, if I decide I want to give them the editor role, I can do that. I can give them the administrator role just fine. Now, one caveat with the submitter role. If you just click this button, it doesn't really work the way you think it does. Essentially, in order for someone to actually have the submitter role correctly assigned and have the privileges of the role, they have to be designated a submitter in essentially two different places. This is one place, and then another place is on the agency side of the application. So it's not something that you guys would ever have any interaction with, which is why it is required that you send us that form 100-882 when you are designated a responsible official. So if I save this, we can see now that instead of viewer, I now have editor and administrator for this person. But now let's say that this person has left my company. I don't want them associated with this anymore at all. I can remove them by clicking this remove button right here. I'm going to click it, and it's going to give me a pop-up that says, are you sure you want to delete this user? It's not actually as scary as it sounds. You're not actually deleting this user's account when you do this. You are simply deleting the association between their account and your company or facility. So instead of, you can think about that as instead of saying delete this user, it's remove this user. So we can remove that person. We can see immediately that they're gone. They no longer have any access to this company whatsoever. Okay, let's look at one of the other companies. Let's go to the next one up here where we are given the company level viewer role. So if I click on this open button, it's again going to show me every facility that I have access to, which since I have a company level role, I have access to every facility for this company. Notice that there are no facility level roles listed beyond these first two. I'll talk about those first two more in a minute. But remember, I have a company level viewer role, but if I click here, it says there are 0 users at your facility with access. If I click here again, nobody is listed. So I want to make it clear that if your role is designated at the company, you will have the permissions at every single facility for that company, but it won't display those roles at the facility. It's only displaying those roles at the company. Now this one I set up again where I have a company level viewer, so I see everything for the company, and I have a facility level editor role for this one, this generic oil and gas number 1. So for this particular facility, I can do all the editing I need to do. I can add the equipment, I can add the hours of operation, et cetera, et cetera. And that is above and beyond the permissions that I have for most of the facilities for this company. And then, of course, we have a submitter role for just this number 10 here. So this is just, again, pointing out that you can have one role at the company level and separate roles at separate facilities for that company. Now, we have one more situation where for this one, for the Admissions Inventory Test Co., we do not have any company level roles. As you see, it says facility level roles only. So when I click this open button, now I see every single facility associated with this company.
Test Co, but I thought he said Test Co. I was like, wait, what?
Caller number 30 that we're trying to mute right now.
Okay.
Got it.
Okay, continuing. We have no company level role at this company. We have facility level roles for 2 facilities at this company. So we are only seeing those 2 facilities that we have a facility level role. We don't see any other facilities for this company because we have no role currently with that company. And again, we can have different roles at different facilities. I have an editor role for this manufacturing facility, but only a viewer role for this mine facility. Another thing to note is we mentioned earlier that we loaded all emissions inventory report data from 2013 through 2018 into SLEIS. One thing that this means is that you might log in and see some closed facilities in your list of facilities. Any facility that reported to us in 2013 through 2018 is in SLEIS, so even if it closed in 2015, you'll still see it there because you may still need access to the 2013 or 2014 reports at some point in the future. For one reason, because if we discover that there need to be corrections to the data, we can request up to 5 years back in time for you to fix data. We mentioned earlier that ROs and MFCs who we already had on file prior to loading this data are also in SLEIS. So those folks will not need to submit the form. And give me just a few minutes and I'll show you how you can tell whether you got an account already in existence. So this is probably another good time to take questions if we've got some more that we want to answer now.
First, we have several more questions. First question, what if your email address has changed but your company name did not? You can just send us an email at aei@deq.ok.gov and let us know about your email address changing. Second question, will ROs receive a password from DEQ or will they need to set one up? They will not receive a password from us. You will need to set your password up, and Grant will go over in just a few minutes how to check and see if you have an account already, so then you can go forward with setting up your password. Any additional ROs you want for the company, you need to send in the form. Next question, if we ask to make an update to SLEIS, one other thing I want to mention about the password is that it will not change. Once you set it up, that is your password from here on out. Unlike Redbud, where you get a yearly password, there will not be a yearly update from SLEIS for passwords. Next question, if we ask to make an update to SLEIS, how long will it take for that change to take place? I'm not exactly sure what kind of update you're talking about. If it's an amendment, you've got to request to do an amendment, and then we can go in and approve that request, and you fill it out and submit it. If you might, Demirius, you might want to type in a little more on what kind of update you're meaning. Any edits that you make to your report or your account will take effect immediately. But if I haven't answered your question, please type in a scenario you're thinking of. Next question, I see that our profile is missing one of our facilities. How can we get that missing facility added? That is a great question, and you should send us an email so we can look into that. Maybe you purchased that facility and we haven't received the administrative change form yet, so we haven't moved that facility. But we can definitely look into that, so send us an email. If you have a very old facility that closed before 2013, it won't have been loaded into SLEIS, but I don't imagine you're talking about that situation. Next question, what username and password should a company use to check their current facility and RO entries? As I said a minute ago, Grant will go over how you can check to see if you have an account. Next question, how can we print these administration and assignment screens?
For the user roles, I'm not
I'm not exactly sure what you're asking, but we will be posting this webinar to our website in the coming weeks so that everybody can view this again, and anybody that hasn't seen it can view it. Our forms lay out the roles. Next question, if I didn't answer your question on any of these, please feel free to type in to the chat again and elaborate. Next question, an update such as an additional user or change to email for a current user. Oh, okay, this is in relation to how long will it take for DEQ to process if you have an additional user or a change to an email. We are doing these every day, so hopefully within 1 or 2 business days we can get that update made. We do make that a priority, especially right before the reporting season and during the reporting season, so that we're not getting into your reporting time frame. And next question, can you provide us your email again? We typed that in. It's aei@deq.ok.gov. That's also on our website. And last question for now, how can we make a record of our entered information? You can generate the report in SLEIS once you fill out your inventory. Then there's a function to do that, and that will be in a subsequent webinar. We'll go over how to do that. So I will give it back to Grant to continue.
So for the rest of the time today, I want to basically talk about, we've looked at the form, and then we've looked at the results of the form being completely processed. But I want to talk through the whole process of how that works. So basically the first thing here, the first step would be that you find the form, and we've shown you a couple places where you can find it, either on our DEQ website or on the SLEIS homepage. You can find both Form 100-882 and Form 100-733. Those need to be filled out. As mentioned earlier, either form needs to be signed by the responsible official. And then you can send them to us either through regular mail, or you can scan a copy and send it through email. Once we receive the signed copy, the first thing that we do is we're going to verify that RO signature. We're either going to verify that it is the same person that we already have on file, or we would expect that it would come in with a new RO form, and we would determine that the person whose name is on the top of the 100-733, their form is being signed by the same person who is submitting a 100-882 at the same time. After we determine that we have the correct RO and they meet the definition, EI staff will create the user account and will link it to the appropriate companies and facilities and assign it the appropriate roles. As Carrie mentioned just a moment ago, it won't take us very, very long to do these. We should be able to go from getting a form in via email to having an account created within a day or so. After we create the SLEIS account, SLEIS will automatically generate an email and send that to the person. This email will contain a link that the user should follow and set up their password for SLEIS. This link remains active for only 72 hours. So please do what you can to get into your email within 72 hours and follow that link and fill out or finish setting up your password. If you don't get to it in time, I'm going to show you what you can do. If the link is expired because it's after 72 hours, you can come over here to the SLEIS homepage, log in, and then use this forgot password feature. If you already have an account, then SLEIS will generate an email that contains a link for you to follow to set up your password. Now, if you don't have an account, SLEIS will let you know that too. So this is actually probably the easiest way to verify whether you have an existing account or whether you need to submit a form to get an account set up, is to use this forgot password method. So I can, just as an example here, if I type in something that I know does not have a SLEIS account, and then I tell it I want to submit to get a new email address, it tells me very quickly your account does not exist. So this should be pretty clear to users whether they have an account, because it'll say you've got an email, go check your email, or it'll say your account does not exist. You only have one account associated with your email address, one password for that account, and that account can be linked to as many companies and as many facilities as we have signatures authorizing you to be linked to. Once you've got your password all set up and you're in SLEIS, we would ask that you look at your companies and your facilities, look to see if what you expect to be there is there. If it's not, or if you have extra stuff, consider whether you've submitted your administrative change form, the 100-883, for the transfer of ownership of facilities. And I said it already, but I want to reiterate again that your SLEIS user account is tied to your email address. This is the one piece of information about your user profile that you could not change by yourself. And it is the one thing that if it does change, you need to let us know as soon as possible so that you can retain your SLEIS access. So we're going to wrap up with a few more slides and be on our way.
All right, it looks like we have a couple more questions. One, what about consultant assisting multiple companies? Do I need multiple passwords? No, you will just, if you're a consultant, you will just have one account that's tied to your email. And when you get onto the My Companies page, you should see all of the companies that you've got contracts with, as long as you have submitted the forms with the RO signing off, giving you access to their data. Next question, we got the initial email and the link expired. I have not been able to reset. Are you meaning this hasn't been set up? So if you got an email that you had an account created and you didn't log in and set up your password and the link expired, as Grant demoed, you can go to the forgot password area and get a new email generated to set that up. If you're still having trouble, feel free to call us or send us an email. And on the screen, we've got our email address and our phone number on there. Next question, will there be a copy of this meeting if we want to go over this information again? Yes, we are recording this right now, and we will be posting it to the website. I'm not sure exactly when. It's got to go through through a couple different groups here before we can post it to the website, hopefully soon and before the next webinar. And we will be looking at the chat questions and pulling out some questions to update our frequently asked questions page on the website. Are there any more questions right now that you want to type in really fast? I see we've gone a few minutes over. We are done. We don't have any more to present. I hope everybody found this helpful, and I hope to see you again on the list of callers, that is, on the December 16th webinar. I'm not seeing any more questions typed in, and I'm seeing people drop off. So thank you for attending today. Feel free to call or email us if you have a question that we didn't answer. Thanks. Bye.